everyone. This is Nick Bover, and welcome to DesignWell Podcast, where on this episode, we're talking air quality, specifically in hospitality. My guest today is Mark Schmidt, who is the EVP of Sales at WellAir, and he's going to shine a little bit of light on the focus of air quality in these commercial spaces, while also talking about WellAir's recent bit of work at the Four Seasons hotels. Mark himself has a long history focusing on building products and solutions that help take care of the lives of those in buildings, and his current role sees him overseeing WellAir's product line in both the commercial and consumer markets. So if you're looking to learn more about the unique requirements of air quality in hospitality, want to know more about high-value spaces when it comes to developing your own approach, or are just curious about how air quality is shaping up to be a differentiator in the commercial setting, stay tuned to this week's episode. Thank you for tuning in. If you liked what you saw, be sure to hit the like button on your way out, and also subscribe to DesignWell's YouTube channel and hit the bell icon if you want to stay informed of any new updates. Alternatively, you can find any of our podcasts over on Apple or Spotify and leave a review there. Here today talking with Mark Schmidt of WellAir, who just recently signed a very big deal with Four Seasons to implement a new air cleaning service to the hotel. And so I really wanted to get into talking about that today. But before we go into a little bit further, Mark, I figure give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Super excited to be here today. So yeah, I'm Mark Schmidt. I'm our Executive Vice President of Global Sales for WellAir. So WellAir is a leading health technology company where we provide a solution to both air and surface disinfection solutions that are deployed into any number of applications, from hospitality to commercial real estate to residential homes every single day. So we're super excited to be part of the podcast and looking forward to talking more about the Four Seasons and other topics with you as well.
Yeah, that's great. And before we actually get into that announcement, I know that the solution that's being used at the Four Seasons is specifically the Plasma Air product. And so I figured before we get into that announcement with Four Seasons, might be advantageous for some of the readers for you to kind of like go into what is behind the Plasma Air product, specifically, the bipolar ionization and how that works in terms of air cleaning.
That's a great question, Nick. So Plasma Air is our in-duct air disinfection solution. So to your point, we use bipolar ionization technology to effectively remove viruses, pathogens, VOCs, molds, bacteria, et cetera, in any type of built environment. And so bipolar ionization is a technology that's been around for 70 years. Ions exist in nature in some of the most pristine environments around the world. So our solutions put positive and negatively charged ions into the space. They either agglomerate and cause particular particles to become bigger. So as the air changes throughout that particular space, it'll get caught by the filter, or they are deactivated. And so we have really strong efficacy across those product sets being tested on some viruses and bacteria, and it's also an extremely safe technology. And so we're super proud of the solution, and obviously to be selected by a brand like the Four Seasons is a testament to the product set that we've got out there today.
Now, when it comes to what you're doing with Four Seasons right now, could you go a little bit more in detail into what that entire, project entails for you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. We, with the Four Seasons in Greece, we are deployed across their common areas. So think, lobbies, restaurants, et cetera, and then also throughout their guest rooms. And so when you think about a brand like the Four Seasons, which is synonymous with a best-in-class guest experience, they want to be able to provide the same amenities that they're providing across their portfolio, whether you think about, something as simple as service or as detailed as sort of an in-room experience. I think, hoteliers have not really thought about, air, and it took something like a pandemic for folks to really realize how important air quality is. So, indoor air is 5 times more contaminated than outdoor air, and we spend 90% of our time, indoors, and we've experienced the most significant global, airborne pandemic in over a century. And so I think, hoteliers and hospitality partners are starting to look at air as a piece that, as they look to bring back, guests into their facilities, that they're doing it in a really safe way. And so the Four Seasons obviously was looking at and evaluating any number of technologies, in their Grecian property, and looked at us, mainly because we are a science-based company. And I think there's a lot of choices out there when it comes to indoor air quality, and a lot of different technologies. And ours, we are a science-based company. We are grounded in making sure that, the claims that we make are claims that we can back up. And we're super proud of the strong story we have there. We've got an outstanding medical advisory board headed up by a former U.S. Surgeon General and some of the most prominent infectious disease experts in the country. And so the Four Seasons could look to us, as the experts, to be able to provide the right solution, and also have, a number of products in our portfolio where we're not a one size fits all, because indoor air quality can be different depending upon the application. And so making sure that we're coming from a place of a consultative approach where we can ensure that they're delivering the right experience for their guests as well.
Now, given the stringent sanitization standards that Four Seasons has, because I've read up on a few of them from time to time, what was it like working with them? Did they have like a lot of input that they were giving to your teams on a regular basis?
As a science-based company, I think a lot of our credibility kind of spoke for itself, where we had some really strong efficacy testing showing viral and bacterial reduction, through not just SARS-CoV-2, but also bacteria and mold and other kind of bothers. Allergens are also something that hotels are obviously very aware of. And so they were honestly, very, very easy to work with. I think we worked with them closely on the design of the system to ensure that we were delivering the right amount of ions per cubic centimeter, in the occupied space. But they had evaluated any number of technologies. And so I think for a brand like the Four Seasons, for us to shake out as the solution that they chose is a great feather in our cap.
Yeah. Now, you already have kind of like an extensive portfolio of hotels that you work with. And kind of speaking to what you were saying earlier about how the pandemic really woke up a lot of people. Originally, I think it's easy for a lot of people to think that air quality is just related to the pandemic. So you figure that, as it becomes more ingrained in the public consciousness, air quality needs kind of start to die down a little bit because the pandemic isn't, what it once was. But have you seen, with working with all of these different hotels, has that demand for air quality kind of petered out, or has it steadily increased since the start of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think it's continuing to. I think we've just now sort of start to hit where you're going to start to see even the hockey stick, because I think when you look at hotel occupancy being down, with business travel being down and personal travel being down right throughout the pandemic, hotels obviously took a hit from an overall revenue perspective, and so I think sometimes it's hard to be able to make capex decisions right while you've got sort of revenue in a bit of a hold phase. And so, you had hotels that were cutting services and cutting different things to be able to try to maintain throughout the pandemic. And I think now where, business travel has started to increase and personal travel has started to increase, that hotels are now looking at the pandemic almost as the catalyst to really start to make, decisions. The same thing hotels were doing on allergens, right? Probably 5 or 10 years ago, where we moved to hyperallergenic pillows and vacuum cleaners, obviously with HEPA filters and things like that. I think now it's starting to look at, how do I ensure that my building is protected? And frankly, how can I take credit for some of these investments, right? Having the ability to say, we've made the investment into ensuring that the air you breathe is as clean as it possibly can. And regardless of what solution, a hotel picks, making sure that they are grounded in the fact they've done their research, and making sure that the testing that they're using or that they're referencing is accurate. I think them just making the decision right now is the most important piece, because it's becoming almost, it's becoming table stakes. It's becoming something that people expect, that, the indoor air quality in a particular building is something that, that is important to them. And you can look at building certification agencies like a Well or a Fitwell, or some of these entities that are out there, UL, coming in and certifying buildings from a healthy spaces perspective. And that's not going anywhere. Hotels and corporations with, ESG initiatives, which is, related to energy and reducing carbon footprint, all that's going to be tied, that's already tied to indoor air quality and will continue to be. So I think that whether it's something like a hotel, it's an office environment that we go to work in every single day, or it's the most personal place in our lives, which are our homes. indoor air quality decisions are being made, every single day. And I don't think that's going to be slowing down anytime soon.
I was actually going to ask if, from what you've seen so far, if that was sort of pushing towards air quality as a differentiator, because, like you were saying, I've already seen that kind of start to unfold within office settings, especially with the Great Resignation going on right now. There's a lot of people who are actively reconsidering, where they want to work based on the environmental quality of the offices they're in. So it's very interesting to see that actually start to play out in the hospitality setting.
I think you nailed it. I think, the commercial real estate or office application is a direct correlation. And I think, Class A office owners and property managers across the country are feeling the same thing that hoteliers are, where, you've got to be able to put solutions in place that are going to cause folks to want to come back. And you can look at survey data from some of those entities like a Fitwel or a Well, and indoor air quality shakes out as the top 3 demands from, folks coming back to the office. They want to know that they're protected. And it shouldn't be it's not an unreasonable ask, right? In any form. It's something that I think we've all taken for granted historically. And it's taken something like a pandemic to put it at the forefront. HVAC technicians, whether that's residential or commercial contractors, have been selling indoor air quality for years. And that could be something that's like a filter, that could be humidity or dehumidity, that could be an electronic air cleaner, right, in duct, or it could be a standalone portable unit. And I think that's the really exciting part for me, is there's not the one size fits all story, right? It's really about folks that are coming in and providing those, consultative solutions. And to come full circle back to your question is, yes, being able to take advantage, right? Being able to show that I'm making this investment, and being able to take advantage of that investment that you're making to show your tenants or show your guests or show your employees or show your family that you're protecting, one of the most important things, and that's the air that they breathe every single day.
I think that's really important too, because I know ever since starting getting into the wellness and the healthy building category, one of the things that I've always seen come up time and time again is just the sheer daunting task that working with HVAC poses for a lot of people. I know that's a big problem in schools that have more aging HVAC systems and not necessarily the funds to upgrade that, and being able to provide those consultative services to kind of give not really a one size fits all solution, but like a very nice holistic solution for these areas that can help improve the air quality without necessarily breaking the bank. I guess owing to that, I also wanted to ask, since you guys have been working with HVAC systems for so long, are there any kind of, this is getting a little ahead of what I originally had planned, but are there any kinds of, I guess, suggestions you would give to hotels in general? Let's just stick with the hotels for now, even though we're kind of bouncing all over the place with the different environments. Any suggestions you would give to hotels that for decisions they can do on their own part to help kind of maximize their investments in HVAC systems?
Yeah, absolutely. When you're working with an HVAC contractor, I always use the analogy that they're the doctor, right, prescribing the solution. And so they are experts in their space, and they're experts in indoor air as well as indoor air quality. And so there's a number of outstanding, HVAC mechanical contractors out there, most of which, hotels are working with every single day, that can come in and provide that recommendation. And in some cases, right, filters may be the right application. If you've got an older HVAC system, to your point, if you upgrade the filters, you may have to upgrade the full HVAC system, which could be, could not be cost effective. Maybe in that scenario, more of an in-duct, electronic air cleaning solution like bipolar ionization or another solution, makes more sense. Or, hey, maybe it's about the visibility of that protection, and a portable solution, right, that can be visible inside a lobby or inside a restaurant or inside even a guest room. Really makes more sense. So I think, it's about leveraging those experts in the space. And I think right now for a lot of, hotels, it's sort of this overwhelming, what do I do? And what do I pick? And there's a lot of options out there. And how do I know one works better than the other? So again, grounding the decision in science and making sure that you're referencing testing, I think is super important, but also leveraging those industry experts that can come in and help you weed throughout the noise. To be able to make sure that you are picking, right, the holistic solution, to use your words, that makes the most sense, for that particular application.
And I'm glad you brought up visibility too, because that's another thing that I've been seeing mostly from a consumer standpoint. In a lot of cases, you can have probably the best HVAC system out there, but if the consumers aren't aware of that, they're still going to be uncertain. There's still going to be this, kind of concern over air quality. And with all the work that you have done, trying to think of a good way to word this. How have you ever been asked to kind of provide that visibility down to like a guest standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, I think two things there. One, I think that, when you look at, our solutions, one of our strengths is our portfolio. So we're not just an induct solution, right? We have a portable solution that's a visible, best in class FDA cleared IAQ solution. And we also have surface disinfection, as well inside our portfolio. And so there's some customers, again, that feel that visibility or that perception of protection is really, really important. It's not just the sort of invisible thing that's up inside the HVAC system. There's something there that, a consumer or an end user or a tenant or a guest can touch, look, see, feel, to know that there's something protecting them, in that particular space. And so I think that's one key component. The second key component, in my opinion, is really reducing what I call the confirmation bias. And so to your point, you can't see, right, viruses and bacteria, kind of being, deactivated or obliterated in a particular space. You're sort of taking, right, the word for it of that particular, professional that's making that recommendation. And so, we see across the industry, and something that I feel is really sort of the next frontier. I know you had a great conversation with Crestron, as part of one of the podcasts, and you guys are talking about, smart home and smart building. And I think, IAQ is really the next key component of that. It's sensor-based technology that's going to be able to show reductions in particulate matter, show an increase and decrease in indoor air quality, mainly as people are introduced to a space, right? Because you can cycle the air as many times as you want to from an air changes per hour perspective. When you think about viral transmission and you think about all the data that we have now, as a result of COVID, as to how, viruses are transmitted from an airborne perspective, having a solution that treats that occupied space while people are present, to me, is super important if you're really concerned about viral and bacterial reduction and protecting those folks or those assets or whatever it may be that are really important, to your business or to you as a homeowner.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that I noticed over at IBS, the idea of sensors being used to gather all of that data, be it for indoor air quality or for energy management, is another big one over there. And I think just kind of, I think that definitely plays into just a design trend that I'm seeing in hotels now, where a lot of hotels are trying to cultivate this more residential feel with a lot of their spaces. And I feel like, it would be a great way to kind of like pair them up together where, all of these residential technologies are focused on being as transparent as possible. So I feel like all of the commercial technologies should kind of follow suit as these commercial spaces try to mimic residential spaces a little bit more in their design.
Yeah, absolutely.
With all the work that you've been doing, I'm kind of curious, where do the priorities lie a lot of the times? Do you mainly work on these common areas, or is it usually an even split between common areas and the guest rooms and other like main areas of congregation?
With bipolar ionization, a benefit is it's a really cost-effective way to treat a really large space. And so when you think about something like a hotel or something like a school or some commercial real estate, some of the other applications that you mentioned, it's usually an all or none decision, which is terrific, because you think about the number of air handlers or rooftop units that are that a particular hotel would use. You can use BPI to be able to treat something as large as the Four Seasons in Greece in a really cost-effective way. In some cases, filters can be expensive, and you've got a scenario where you need to change them out frequently, or to our prior point, HVAC upgrades. It can be expensive. I think our solutions are again ways that a hotel owner can really be able to market and to protect, right, those guests in a manner that's not going to break the bank, and it's something that we're really proud of.
And now the other thing that I wanted to talk about before we kind of wrap things up is COVID is definitely one of the big things that I've seen is that a lot of talk about air quality mainly circulates around COVID. And a lot of studies that I've also come across, the average consumer is getting a lot more educated, and they know what air quality does to them. They know many of the aspects of air quality, but it also still seems like there are some gaps in knowledge there. Mainly how humidity plays a role in it, how carbon dioxide plays a role with it. And I'm kind of curious, with you working with hotels all the time and other commercial buildings, does COVID seem to be the core concern of people right now when they reach out to you for these air quality solutions? Or are they also reaching out with the understanding that, this isn't just going to be for COVID, it's going to be for the particulate matter, for the VOCs, for everything else that's in the air?
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Nick. I think the 12 to 18 months ago, it was a COVID conversation, right? And I think now folks are becoming more educated on not just, air quality in whole, but also the other, impacts that an indoor air quality solution can have on things like molds and bacteria and allergens and things like that. So I think, hotels are becoming much more educated on the whys and the whats, and are looking at it not as a COVID solution. And I think that's really important to us, right? I don't think the industry wants to be seen as a COVID solution, because it's not. Indoor air quality is something that, again, has been top of mind for folks even pre-pandemic. But ultimately, the pandemic has been the catalyst that's really sort of brought it to the forefront. And so I think that that hotels are looking at it from the perspective of, hey, it's not just for my guests, it's also for my employees, and reducing absenteeism and increasing presenteeism, and making sure that, in a bad flu season, right, that we're still, maintaining occupancy rates that are really important. Or again, making sure that, in an environment where it's all about, the guest experience, how can I ensure that somebody who's suffering from allergies, right, isn't impacted when they come into my hotel. So yeah, it's not a COVID story anymore. It's really about indoor air quality in the broader sense. And we're here to help, folks make sure that they're addressing those questions in the right way.
Yeah, it's definitely great to see that now, especially considering it's one of those things where health and wellness started off as what seemed like a trend. And I'm really glad that it's kind of evolving past that, especially with some of the things that I'm seeing right now with a lot of the different talks. There's whole trend report that just came out recently that's also very interesting in the ways that, like, you start to see people kind of identify, there was like the impetus that got it started, like we were talking about with COVID. And then there's the understanding of, oh, okay, this is why it's good to keep this.
Yeah, you're right. And I think, like, take a hotel in a simple example, right? I mean, we've I'm a huge traveler, right? For both work and for play. And so, one of the things that, I would always look at when reviewing a hotel is like the fitness facilities, right? Or the gyms, or the things that when you think about health and wellness that are sort of core to what it is, or things like the Westin has done with partnerships with New Balance, and, being able to ultimately have like the gym in the building, and you'd be able to have your clothes and your sneakers if you forgot them. And so, but yet you would go to that gym and you'd probably be breathing, again, some air that was contaminated, and not the most, not the healthiest environment on the planet. And so I think, on that front, just being able to really look at it from a holistic way, to say, from the time that I walk in the front door until the time that I walk out that same front door, how am I ensuring, that my guests and my tenants are ultimately, taken care of in the most effective way possible. So I agree with you. It's just awesome to see it sort of coming full circle.
Yeah. So one last thing before we go, I figure I'll open it up to you because, again, you've been working with HVAC for a long time. And as we kind of talked about earlier, some of the misconceptions that are out there, is there one misconception that you come across time and time again that you really want to set the record straight on for people?
From an indoor air quality perspective, I think that there's a one-size-fits-all solution for everyone. I think anyone that comes in and says that it's only mine and only mine is the one that works, I think is ultimately, something that I think the industry, we as an industry need to make sure that we're providing kind of consultative solutions. And there's some cases where filters are the right application. There's some cases where electronic air cleaners are the right application. Some cases where portables are the right application. Somewhere just bringing in outside air, right, might be the right application. And so just making sure that, as folks are making decisions, that they're doing it right, leveraging professionals, leveraging HVAC contractors, leveraging architects or engineers or design firms that are out there to be able to show folks that, hey, this is a portfolio of solutions that you can choose, but we recommend this one because of these specific parameters. So, the HVAC industry is something that's near and dear to my heart, and something that, has been a part of my career for a really long time. And so I think those guys are doing an amazing job of, again, kind of being the doctor to prescribe the right solution, whether that's anything from a hotel down to, the place that you call home.
Well, it was great getting a chance to talk to you. I honestly, every single time I do one of these things, it just feels like the time flies right by. But once again, it was great getting a chance to talk with you.
Yeah, it's great getting a chance to talk with you. I think Nick, if I could just sort of leave you and the audience with one thing, it's really, about making sure that you're thinking about indoor air quality. Again, two things: make sure that it's, you're focusing on the science, and you're focusing on, partners that are standing behind, the claims that they're making, and two, right, leveraging those industry professionals to make sure that you are provided the right solution and the right service based off, the needs that, that you're trying to solve for. So we're super excited to be, a key component of any number of the leading hospitality providers across the country, and commercial real estate and residential and all those other things are no different. So I appreciate your time today, and thanks so much for the thoughtful questions, and hopefully we get to do it again soon.
Yeah, hopefully we do. And I'll be keeping an eye out for you guys at the next hotel I stay at.
Perfect. Yeah, or tell them about us. Either way. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Cool. Thanks so much, Nick. I appreciate it.
Thank you.